And we're back again with another edition of Recruiter Fuel. Now, if you're interested in becoming one of the professionals on Recruiter Fuel, make sure you click the button below, express your interest, and somebody will reach out to you to see what topic is best suited for you. But again, the whole idea behind Recruiter Fuel is talking to professionals about what goes on in our industry. So Andrew, Gary, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
So one of the topics, and we've talked about this before the video here, is this idea of candidates and culture fit, which is something that people talk about continuously, but I'm not sure we all understand. Why is culture fit so important when you're talking about candidates? Andrew.
Well, they have to be at a certain place and work all day. And they want to make sure that it's a great place for them and they're aligned with the company's values. And a lot of times it takes some figuring out to get there how they actually fit together.
So how do you figure that out? I mean, so you say align with the company's values. How do you know what the company's values are? And ultimately, how do you know if it fits the candidate if you're recruiting or you're dealing with a client, Gary?
When it comes to recruiting, I mean, I would say the easy part is the position itself, right?
The skills.
The skills, the experience needed, the
Finding
job.
somebody with 5 years of experience programming in Java is pretty easy.
Right. But now when we're reaching out to passive candidates that are currently employed, they're going to want to know more. They're going to want to know the culture of the company. What's the attitude of the employees? What's the environment like there? And is it going to be a fit for them? So that's obviously from a recruiting side the challenging part. You want to get as much information up front from the client as you can about those things.
Define that, Andrew. You've been recruiting a
Yes.
long time, right? So when somebody says, here's what our culture is, or what's the culture like, what are they looking for? Define it a little bit more for me.
Well, I would say, the culture is, Gary did a good job of, attitude, employees, environment. I've only met clients that have a great culture, so
Everyone's got a wonderful culture, right?
and every candidate wants to be part of a great culture. Well, you have to ask more pointed questions as far as the environment. I mean, is this a role where it's a lot of numbers, or is it a group collaboration environment on projects, or is everybody doing everything on their own? Are people working with other areas of the company quite a bit, or are you kind of in your own little silo? There's a lot of different ways you can figure out environment, and then obviously look into company's values. Most people have a mission statement or something there. You can ask questions around those. With candidates then, okay, what is a good environment to you? Maybe it's working from home, maybe it's exposure to different areas, maybe it's something different.
So go back for a second, neither one of you can answer this idea of company values. How many, so companies espouse existing values or potentially values they want to go to, right? And I've had the experience of both. What's your experience been? Is it more altruistic values that they want to get to, or is it these truly are our values?
I think they have the listed values that here's truly are our values. Then there is some altruistic ones as well. Everybody's kind of thinking forward because culture always comes up now.
Yeah.
I won't say it's a buzzword, but it's something everybody's very concerned about. And I think, again, it's stated and also where they're looking to go so that people know that, hey, we're going to be somewhere you want to be for a long time.
Gary, in your experience, and more on the sales side of selling services to companies that are looking to recruit, is culture similar to competency, and where do you rank it? I mean, I know it's more important than skill because it's easier to find or it's harder to find than skill, but what about competencies of a role? Is there a difference between culture and the competencies of the candidate, in your opinion?
I mean, I think they're both really equally important.
Yeah.
Especially if a person's they're passive and they're not necessarily looking, but they're open to the idea of a new company. As much as the skills might match, it could be a big move for them. They could be moving from somewhere, relocating.
Sure.
So they're going to want to make sure that this is an environment, a culture. It's so important.
The job itself is often the job they're doing right now. So they want something more, right? So the way I've always looked at it is you've got competencies for the role. So competencies go beyond skill set. Skill set is I know how to program in Java. Competency would be somebody who's a self-starter, right? That's real easy. So I've always looked at it as there's skills, competency, culture. Competencies are for the job, but there's also competencies that fit the culture. And so we get all kind of confused by what culture really means. Let's think about it. What are the competencies that fit the company, not just the role? And it takes us down a little bit of a different path. This is how I've always looked at it. Because when you ask a client, when you ask a hiring manager, what's the culture like? What are the answers that you often get?
Oh, we have a great culture. It's team oriented. You know, we don't have managers that micromanage. You know,
Yeah.
we want to help everybody grow.
Which is a red flag. As soon as I hear, yeah, we have managers that don't micromanage, that's usually meaning we have some that really micromanage,
Yep.
and we've got to deal with it. Any recruiter who's been doing this or salesperson has been doing this for a period of time is probably going to experience that.
Yeah, and we foster growth. We give everybody an opportunity to take their career to the next level, and then you got to drill. You know, you as the recruiter and/or the salesperson have to drill down on that a little more.
Yeah. How many times have you heard from a client we have a unique culture?
Quite a bit. I think it's important to ask the honest questions from the recruiting side. I mean, even when it comes to culture or anything else around the position or the reputation of the company, is there anything negative, anything we should, it doesn't hurt to ask, because you want to have all that information up front when you're talking with the client so they know exactly what they're getting into.
And even beyond just the company, is there any negative information about that hiring leader? I mean, that's not a question we often want to ask, and that drives the culture of that particular group. Which is important.
Would you agree, though, that it's important to ask those types of questions?
Oh, without question. I mean, the deeper you can get around what's really going on, the easier it is to relay that to a candidate or to combat that with a candidate who may know more about it than even you do, right? I mean, that's the other thing about culture is we always come in with the positive side of culture. We've got to understand that there is no perfect organization.
And you made a good point, Steve. The culture of the group probably matters more than the culture of the entire organization, because you might work at a satellite office, you might not be at HQ. And if you're in a certain situation, it might be good, it might be bad, but it can be very different from everybody else, especially if it's a larger company.
Absolutely the case. We've got to get to a point where we can define culture a little bit more clearly. We can define the questions to specifically ask, as you're saying, get deeper, get more specific about some of these questions, because I think it's something that we miss constantly, and it's tough to relay truly what culture means. Again, I think it's competencies that fit the company, the department, competencies that fit the position, and then the easiest thing is to find the skill. That's my sense.
Makes sense.
Because the last thing you want is to, bring somebody on that looks like a great candidate, it's a hire, and then because of culture issues, they're not happy and they're not going to stick around.
They're going to be the first ones out the door. So getting them in is one thing, getting them to stick, completely something different.
Yep.
Well, guys, thank you for this conversation around this idea of culture. I think it's going to be something we're going to get a lot more questions about that we'll have to probably come back to. Guys, thank you for joining us. It's been great to have you again. Again, make sure if you're interested in being one of our guests, any topic is free game. Make sure you click on the button below, and we'll see you next time.